Hey, Pokedad fan club, it's me, Pokedad, and I have my special guest with me, my son,
Linky.
and we're going to do a Monday deck profile. He's going to talk about probably just a couple of the cards, but I wanted to have him in here with me and help me out. So the first card is, we're going to look at another Giratina EX deck. And this one is one of those cards that has been kind of ebbing and flowing with people. People's opinions have been changing over and over. I have to admit my opinion has changed back and forth a couple times. Uh, but I've come to the conclusion that I really, really like this card after all. Now, the biggest reason, I mean, at first, a lot of people really were hyped about this because you put it with Vileplume and you could basically shut down your opponent on everything. But the Vileplume decks tend to be inconsistent, and Vileplume in general is just hard to get out unless you really dedicate your whole deck to it. And that really leaves you not as much room to dedicate to what you need for Giratina to make sure that you get him ready to go. So but in spite of all that, I still love Giratina EX. So let's talk about um, why I love Giratina EX. Now, the first thing is the ability Renegade Pulse. Prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Mega Pokemon, Mega Evolution Pokemon. So Giratina can't be hurt by Mega Manectric, Primal Groudon, Primal Kyogre. Any of the Mega Evolutions can't hurt Giratina. So this forces your opponent to do a couple things. Either they don't evolve the Pokemon, and then they have to fight with their basic EXs, which typically that's what they're going to have to do, or they're going to have to play around it using Lysanders and Hexmaniacs, and that can just be really troublesome for them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is Chaos Wheel. Now, at first I was thinking with Vileplume we lock the items and then Chaos Wheel locks everything else. But I want you to just stop and think about why Chaos Wheel works so well. It really helps you about any matchup will help you really well. Let's say you're playing a stage 1 matchup. First of all, Chaos Wheel is usually going to take a knockout on your Raichu, your Vespiquen, your Metachams, those kind of things at 100 attack. But the thing is, then your opponent can't play any tool cards, so they can't play any muscle bands to use damage enhancers. They can't play any special energy, so like DCE, which a lot of decks like Night March and Vespiquen are driven by, they can't play that. And they can't play stadiums, which so many decks are dependent on now. Skyfield, you can't bring that out. Uh, Fighting Stadium, don't dare bring that out. So Giratina allows you to lock your stadium at least for the one turn, and if you can keep on just continuing with the Chaos Wheel over and over, then they're stuck, not being able to really do much. So we team Giratina up with someone that really just makes a lot of sense. And at this point, I'm going to let Link Geek do a little bit of the analysis for Pyroar. Yes, we're bringing back Pyroar. Now, Pyroar came back in Flash Fire, and so Link Geek, I'll let you talk a little bit about Pyroar.
So basically, Pyroar's ability allows him to be invincible only to basic Pokemon.
Okay. And so if they don't Mega Evolve, then we can bring the Giratina back up, and what can we do with Pyroar?
Put him up and become invincible, basically.
Right, so if they do Mega Evolve, then we bring Giratina up. If they don't Mega Evolve, we bring Pyroar up. And the other thing that's special about Pyroar is, since he is a fire type, it really helps in matchups against metal and grass. And since grass is a big thing right now, it can still, with a muscle band, take out Mega Sceptile with one shot. Now, Pyroar's attack is Scorching Fang, so it takes a fire energy and a double colorless and it does 60 damage, but you can choose to discard the fire energy and it'll do an additional 30 more damage. With a muscle band, you can hit 110, and if you're hitting for weakness, that's 220. So Pyroar hits that really good magic number against Mega Sceptile. And then also just helps in the metal matches. And even if you play against a stage 1 deck, you're at least exchanging, instead of them knocking out your Giratina, you're getting a 1-for-1 trade. But he's also going to stop attackers like Lugia EX, Miltank, and also Regice.
Don't forget Night March.
And all the Night Marchers too. So if you're playing against Night March, Pyroar is like an auto win. So this is, as you can see right now, we're looking at some really good synergy between Pyroar and Giratina. And furthermore, we're going to synergize that more. We're going to use fire energy to take care of the Giratina's colorless costs, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. Now, Link Geek, so let's move on to Hydreigon EX. Dragon type, what does he do for us?
His ability, says if there's a stadium in play, your dragon Pokemon's retreat cost is 2 colorless less.
Okay, and so why does that help us in this situation?
Because if you need to retreat, it doesn't take as much energy. And also, Shred does 80, and the attack's damage isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon.
For that reason, I don't even play a Hex Maniac in this deck, though we could probably squeeze it in if we needed to. But if we run into any walls ourselves, like Aegislash EX or Beautifly, Regice, we either use Pyroar, because Pyroar can be charged up without the double colorless. We can use 3 fire energies, and especially with Blacksmith, which we do play a 1 of in here. Pyroar can get through a lot of the walls, but if we can't get through with Pyroar, then we have Hydreigon who can get through with Shred. And he's going to be 2-shotting most of these, like Aegislash. As a muscle band, we can 2-shot Aegislash EX, and most of the time Aegislash is going to be 2-shotting Hydreigon, so it's kind of like whoever hits first is going to win, and unless of course one retreats. And that's the other cool thing, is if we have 2 Hydreigon in play, both of them can freely retreat, as well as the Giratina. So go ahead.
If you have 2 Hydreigon, Dragon Road doubles up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you have 2 Hydreigon, the Dragon Road doubles up, and then all your all of your dragons retreat for free. So now, along with that, now we have to we want Giratina to charge up quick. We actually want to play some kind of energy acceleration, and that comes in the form of Reshiram. So take it away, Link Geek.
So Reshiram has Turbo Energize, which says once during your turn before your attack, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may attach a fire energy from your discard from your hand to one of your Pokemon, Dragon Pokemon.
Right. And so the cool thing is, though, this can actually stack too. So we can Turbo Blaze with this Reshiram, retreat into another Reshiram, and Turbo Blaze again, and then play Double Dragon Energy, and Giratina can literally be charged up in 1 turn. And if we also play a couple switching cards, so we could literally actually attack with Giratina on turn 1 with the Reshirams. So very nice complement to the other dragons that we play. Now, we've got, like I said, we play 2 Litleos and 2 Pyroars. We also play 2 Shamans. It's just one of those cards that's going to be standard in just about every deck. Now, there are a couple that's not. I've seen, obviously, Wobbuffet has a deck without Shaman. And what is it? Min Xiao. I just saw that deck recently. And we'll probably do a deck list on that in the coming weeks, I should say, not months. And it doesn't use a Shaman, but Setup just so much, it's like getting an extra supporter whenever you play it. And so setup allows you to draw back up to 6 cards. And then Sky Return turn back to our hand for 30 damage, but the key thing is we get to reuse it then if we use the Sky Return. Alright, so let's now move on to I think I'd like to talk about the supporters next. And the reason is we talked about one energy acceleration, which is Reshiram. But since we're using fire energy and Pyroar, we can actually use one blacksmith. And this comes in very handy because we have a lot of fire cards that help us to draw through our deck a little bit faster. And that puts fire energy in the discard pile. And then we can blacksmith it back onto Pyroar. So literally we attach one fire energy to Pyroar, blacksmith the other 2, and he can be ready to attack in 1 turn also. So just like Giratina can be charged up in 1 turn, theoretically, so can Pyroar. Alright, Link Geek, what about this card right here?
That's Lysander. It's basically a switch, but use it on your opponent.
Alright, and why would we use that?
To knock out an EX, a very weak EX like Shaman.
Okay, or if they retreat and we need to bring back someone that we've already done damage to, Lysander is just perfect for that. So we just play 1. We are playing 3 VS Seekers, so we can always get it back if we need it. Alright, moving on, we play the 4 standard Sycamore. That's just typical in most decks nowadays. Discard your hand and draw 7. He has his... there's good and bad things about Sycamore. You know, sometimes you have to just drop everything in your hand and you lose all those resources. But if it weren't for him, we might just get stuck and never be able to go any further. So Sycamore can at least keep us moving throughout the game. And there's 4 of those. We also play 1 Birch and 1 Shauna. The Birch and Shauna debate rages on. It's kind of funny. People that like to play Birch kind of rag on people that like to play Shauna, and people that play Shauna like to rag on the people that play Birch. So I'm just going to appease everybody, and I'm going to use 1 Birch and 1 Shauna. I think, though, if I had to be totally honest, I'm leaning more toward Shauna. I'd rather have the consistent 5 than, you know, end up with 4. That 4 sometimes, I mean, think about it. If you get red carded at the beginning of a game, you're dropped down to 4, you can be stuck for a long time. Whereas that 1 extra card from Shauna might be just the card you need to break through. Now, I know some people are going to say, yeah, but 50% of the time you're going to hit 7 with Birch, and that is true. So play 1 Birch and play 1 Shauna. Now, another thing that we need to talk about is this deck is really about energy disruption also. For that reason, we play 1 Team Flare Grunt. That one, if we can play Team Flare Grunt, that 1 energy attachment that they made can be, you know, the difference in us getting our Giratina started and getting that Chaos Wheel going where they can't attach any of their double colorless or their special energies, change the stadium on us. That one time can just really help us and be clutch to help us get the Giratina going without having to worry about an attack right away. So Team Flare Grunt helps us. We also play 3 Crushing Hammers. I've considered playing 4, but I rather play 3 Crushing Hammers, and we got a 50% chance of hitting heads, and then 1 Enhanced Hammer, which is going to guarantee that if they have special energy already attached, we can take that special energy out. Then we can start attacking with Giratina, making sure that they do not get to play any more special energy, at least while we're attacking with Chaos Wheel. Alright, Link Geek, what about this card right here?
Escape Rope is basically a switch and a Lysander together, except you can't choose who your opponent puts up.
And so your opponent's going to get to have to switch out his first, so you can see what we're bringing up, which really helps us with the whole Pyroar Giratina. So if he brings up a basic Pokemon, we can bring Pyroar up, and they can't hurt Pyroar. Or if they've got a Mega, we can bring Giratina up, and they can't hurt Giratina. So Escape Rope is helpful, but it also helps us to cycle through our Reshiram quickly. so that we can get more turbo blazes onto the Giratina. For that matter, we also play 2 switches, and that again is for the Reshrams, but it's just very helpful. Even though we have Dragon Road, there are times where we need to switch from Pyroar back and forth to something else, and so having 2 switches in the deck can be very helpful, especially if we need to get out of status conditions. Alright, what's this one, Link Geek? This one's a real good one.
Ultra Ball is excellent. You can use it, is excellent. You can use it to, if you use it, you discard 2 cards from your hand, and you can, and then once you do that, it's basically a Master Ball.
So what does that do for us?
You can grab it. Any Pokemon.
Yeah, you search your deck for Pokemon. So this can be helpful because especially lowering your hand count by 2 help you. You can grab a Shaman and then Shaman more cards. Or if it's a Pyroar, a Giratina, or a Hydreigon, you can grab the one you need and get it out. So Ultra Ball is just standard in most decks. Most of you already know about that. Moving right along, we do play 1 Professor's Letter. That helps us get our fire energy more quickly. And I'll talk about why we need the fire energy. Well, obviously the one thing is Blaze. But there's 2 cards here that help us draw, also have more draw power, and it's really the thing that helps us get through this deck quickly. Without it, this deck probably would not be as consistent because it would be clunky. But we've Scorched Earth, and then we play 3 Fiery Torch. And I know some of you are thinking, what? Fiery Torch? I haven't seen that since Flash Fire. But they both do pretty much the same thing. You discard 1 fire energy from your hand and draw 2 cards. And again, remember, if we want to use Blacksmith on Pyroar, Fiery Torch and Scorched Earth both help us get that energy out of the discard pile into the discard pile so we can Blacksmith. Alright, now what about VS Seeker, Link Geek? What does that do?
Basically put a supporter from your discard pile in your hand.
So it lets us reuse our supporters, and it lets us to use any of them that are in the discard pile. So if we have a Blacksmith in the discard pile, we can use it to Blacksmith. If we need a Team Flare Grunt again, we can use it for Team Flare Grunt. Whatever we need it for. Shauna, we don't want to Sycamore our hand away, so we can grab Shauna or Birch. And so it does all that. Alright, now what about Muscle Band? We play 3 Muscle Bands. What does that do?
When you attach it to a Pokemon, that Pokemon's attack to 20 more damage.
It sure does. And so that's just another standard staple in most decks. So we play 3 of those because Giratina is only hitting 100, with the Muscle Band hits 120. Pyroar is only hitting 60 to 90. With a Muscle Band can now hit 80 to 110. So we're still, this deck is probably going to be mostly 2-hit KOing, but the idea is we're trying to block our opponents from getting any damage on us, and so that's okay. We'll take the 2-hit KOs, but the Muscle Band helps us to keep it in the 2-hit KO range instead of having to make it a 3-hit KO. Alright, and then we play, I don't know if Link Geek is even familiar with this one. Are you familiar with Fated Town?
Yeah.
Alright, so what does that do?
At any time between turns, put 2 damage counters on each Mega Evolution Pokemon.
Okay, so this is especially useful for if we're gonna, there's 2 things that this can, if they do go ahead and decide to bring the Mega Pokemon out, then it's going to do 40 damage every, 20 at the end of my turn, 20 at the end of theirs, and it's just going to keep adding up. Matter of fact, I've even seen a Mega Manectric that I never even touched, that was on the bench, never even hit him once, fainted from Fated Town because it just took that much damage over time. So very, very useful card. But the other thing is it's a threat to your opponent, especially if Giratina starts Chaos Wheel. Now they have to decide that it means that they're probably not going to Mega Evolve, and then that allows us to move over to Pyroar and start hitting them with Pyroar, and they can't hit us back. That's one of the things. But if they do decide to Mega Evolve, then Faded Town is in there to start hurting them. So that's pretty good card there. All right, the last thing we have is energies. So we play 9 fire energies. Again, we play that many because we want to, several of them every game, we're going to be sending to the discard pile through um, Fiery Torch or through Scorched Earth, or if we need to Ultra Ball them away, we can. That allows us to use Blacksmith later on in the game. And then Link Geek, this other card, what is this for?
Double Dragon Energy. It's basically a rainbow energy that can only be attached to Dragon, but counts as 2 energy instead of 1.
So this is actually the only energy we use for Giratina and any of our dragons. Actually, we have to have at least one of those attached to be able to attack. Now, one thing to mention about this is if we're playing the mirror match against Giratina, whoever gets charged up first and gets their first Chaos Wheel usually wins. But that's why I teamed this up with Pyroar, because first of all, Giratina can't hurt Pyroar, and Pyroar can be charged up with just basic energies. So if for any reason we're playing the mirror match against Giratina, then Double Dragon, and they get the Chaos Wheel off first, we can't attach Double Dragon, but we can still play our fire energies. We can tank Pyroar, put all energies on him, and then just start, starting hitting with Pyroar over and over again.
I have a question. What happens if you look at the mirror match of Giratina Pyroar?
Well, I hope. Well, I have many of those decks right now.
Okay, that's a good sign.
But it'd probably be Pyroaring after Pyroar, and whoever knocks out the opposing Pyroars first would win. Anyway, guys, we've gone 20 minutes now on this deck profile. To do Tuesday night fights, and I'm going to be taking this deck and playing it. And many of you have asked that you'd like to see the live matches. And so I know I've been doing a lot online, but I want to, tomorrow we're going to bring back the live matches. And I may take this guy on, or I may take Pokemon on, depending on who's available. But I'm going to be using this deck because this currently is my new favorite deck right now. I really love it. And we'll hopefully be able to show you the power of it. Anyway, this is PokeDad and
Link Geek.
And we're signing off. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.